Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today for this webinar around Twinmotion 2020. Just want to quickly thank Daryl for the introduction. At the end of this webinar, we'll have a Q&A session, so if you have questions during the presentation, keep them in mind and we will answer all of them at the end. So my name is Martin. I've been working on Twinmotion for more than 7 years now. I will be your host today. The idea of this webinar will be to just give you a quick tour of everything that is new inside this new version of Twinmotion. So actually, let's get started. So first off, with Twinmotion 2020, we did a lot of work on the vegetation. So I will open my library and enter the vegetation and landscape folder. First, in the bush folder, we have been replacing all our previous bushes assets by Quixel Megascan assets. So now we have highly detailed models. So for example, here, if I start to come up close, you can really see the details on the texture. It's really better quality compared to what we had in the past. So all our bushes here has been replaced by all those really great, really highly detailed assets. After the bushes, we also have completely reworked all our trees. So if I come to the tree folder, all our tree here has been completely reworked. And all our tree exists in 3 ages. For example, here, if you look at the bigger preview on the right over here, you can see the adult size, medium size, and young size of each tree. That means that each tree exists in 3 different ages. For example, if I drag and drop this Norwest spruce here, by default it's set to an age of 50%. So let me raise the age of this one and lower the age of this one. As you can see here, it's really the shape that changes. It's not just a basic scale on the geometry itself. So for each tree species that we have inside the library, now each species exists in 3 different shapes and size. And why does that matter? We'll see that in a moment. So let me just come back over here. Can raise a bit the age of this one, something like that. Also, all our tree, it's not just tree with 3 different ages. We also have raised the quality of the trees. For example, if I come up close to this one here, you can really see the enhanced texture quality that we have here. We even have some subsurface scattering effect on the foliage. And also all the wind effect has been reworked on the vegetation to have a much more believable effect. After that, we have reworked the tool to add vegetation. So I will come to the context doc, vegetation paint. Here we'll start to paint some vegetation, like for example the wild grass. I'll select my paint tool, and here I can start to paint my grass on my terrain. So first, as you can see, the grass disappears when it's far from the camera. It's an optimization setting that you can find over here in the burger menu, preferences, fading of grass. By default, I think it's set to near. Here I just switch it to far. Let me just switch to near so you can see the difference. So it's really an optimization feature to gain performances while inside the viewport. So it cuts the geometry, and since usually you have a lot of grasses, it can quickly drain the performances of the machine. But it's only in the viewport that this grass will be removed from the display. At the export, you will see the grass even if you paint it up top on the hill over there. So here there is not enough grass, so I will select my grass and change the density after I've painted the layer. So this is something new in this new version of Twinmotion, so you can edit a layer even after you painted it. So now this layer exists. It's not just, let me just add more grass like here. It's not like, for example, here I've defined an area, I've defined a layer, and now I can keep adding object to this layer. So for example, here I can add this tall grass, and this tall grass will be automatically scattered on all my layer. I don't need to select my paint tool and paint again this new tall grass. And now that this layer exists, I can keep adding object to these layers. For example, here I can add some flowers, a bit too much. So for example, these flowers here, I can just lower to something like 5%, maybe 1, 2. Let's keep adding some objects. I can switch to the bush folder and add, for example, some of the bushes, maybe too much. Just going to change the density, a few of these. And we can even add some trees. So for example, here I will add my Norway spruce. You can even add the same tree multiple times. So for example, I will add the Norway spruce 3 times. And something that is also new with this new paint tool is that you can enter the selection dock while inside this Dropbox. So for example, this Norway spruce here, I can enter the settings of this specific tree. So if I click here, I have the selection dock of this tree. That means that one of the three I can switch to an adult age, for example. And the second one I can switch to a younger age. And of course I can change the density of all of them. I want less young trees, so I will just select this one and switch it to 5, maybe 10%. I will raise the density of the adult age and raise a bit the density of the medium age. And here I've created a quick forest really easily and really quickly. Also, this new layer system now exists in the scene organizer, like you can see here. It's the layer system, and you can turn on and off these objects. And of course, you can create multiple variations of your landscaping. You can have this forest, and you can create a new layer with another organization, with another type of vegetation, and you can switch from one to another with the phasing tool. So if I want to add tree on all my terrain, I can use this paint tool like that, but in Twinmotion 2020 we also added a new option, which is the scatter tool. So let me close that. In the scatter tool you have a small phrase that tells you what to do, so drop object over here. So I'm just going to drop a few objects here. I will select all of them. And here, with my bucket, I will just click on my bucket and click one time on my terrain, and it will scatter all the objects in my Dropbox on all my terrain. If I want to add more density, I will just keep clicking until I have the density I want. So this is the new scatter tool. It works for the tree like that, but it can also work for grasses. So just before I showed you that all our trees exist in 3 different ages. Why does that matter? It's because here in the weather dock we added a new option, which is the growth option. This growth option allows you to visualize the project at delivery, like here, but you can also visualize the look of the vegetation around the project across multiple years. So if I start to raise the growth option, you can see that the tree will grow, and you can really see the evolution of the vegetation around your project across multiple years. Next thing is the lighting. With Twinmotion 2020 we did a lot of work on the lighting. So first, now we have some auto exposure. That means that, let me just come for example over here. When the camera is in a dark place, it automatically adjusts the brightness of the camera. And if I come to an area that is not in the shadow, like here, the camera will automatically adjust. It's the auto exposure. You can play, if you are creating a camera and you want to have your image more dark, you can play with the exposure control in the settings lighting dock. With this new version also, all the lights has been reworked using real world value. And what does that mean? That means that if I drag a spotlight, like in real life, during daytime, you won't be able to see the light. Even if I start to raise the intensity of the light, it will quickly be almost invisible. If you want to override this value, you can manually type a value to override this slider. So for example here, the max value of the slider is 10,000, but you can manually type up to 1 million lumen. So it's not a light that will exist in real world, but it's something that you can fake directly by tapping manually the value you want. Next thing, in Twinmotion 2020 we added a new light type. So let me come over here. Actually, in the interior of my project over here, I will use an area light. So we'll just drop it on my roof over here. And here, this new area light, as you can see, we have a few options like the length and the width. So I think the project is like 15 by 15 meters. I will just place the area light in the middle of my roof. And now I will just come on the inside and I will raise the intensity of the light. And same thing here, I just use the override value by manually typing the value I want. So here, it's just the new light source in an area light that enlight a whole area using a square geometry. So here is a quick way to enlight really large floor. Next thing is the volumetric lighting. To do that, I've set up some images on my project. So let me switch to this first image over here. First way to visualize volumetric lighting will be to use the fog. So we'll come to the more of this specific image, enter the weather dock. In the effects, here we have the smog. If I start to raise this value here, you can start to see the ray, the God ray, through the leaves on my vegetation here. And here it's just using the smog, but you can also use you can also use two different types of light directly inside Twinmotion, which is the omnidirectional and the spotlight. And those two lights now have a haze option. What the haze do, it basically enable particles floating in the air within the radius of the light. So for example, if I turn this on, as you can see, we have now like a smog, a fog effect, but just in the radius of 5 meters. So first what I will do is just lower the intensity of the haze and raise the radius. Maybe it's even too much density, so I'll come back to my mirror and switch maybe to like 5%. And here I just added even more fog to my scene. Let me switch to another image. In this point of view, it's the same point of view actually, but during nighttime. And here I use also the omnidirectional light with this haze option turned on. You can also use directly a spotlight to visualize the effect of the volumetric lighting. After the volumetric lighting, we have done work on the enhancement of the glow. So let me switch to this night scene over here. As you may see here, we have a small sphere on my ground in my corridor. So I will use my material picker. I will select my sphere, and here I will just raise the glow of this object. As you can see now, the object, the glow material, emits real light. So for example, if I start to drag my sphere around my project, you can see that it affects the surrounding geometry. You can visualize that with my sphere over here, but it's an object that is only, it's an effect, sorry, that is only screen space. That means that if my sphere is not in my viewport, you won't be able to see the effect. For example, here, if I start to move my camera over here, as soon as my sphere disappears from the screen, I don't see the effect of the lights. So it's really an effect that is only present when the object is in the viewport. So here I will just show you the same thing with my light on my ceiling here. If I erase this, I can start to visualize, to add some light to my project. And it also works with video materials, which is something also new in this new version of Twinmotion. So if I come to the materials folder, if I scroll down to the video, here we just drag and drop this video material and raise, not the delay, raise the glow. Something a bit lighter. As you can see, the glow is enlightening also the wall in front and the floor and the ceiling. And since it's a video, you can see that this glow will be animated, it will change color. So this effect, you can visualize that because it's through the SSGI, the Screen Space Global Illumination, which is also something new in this new version of Twinmotion. So to show you that, let me switch to this scene. To compare to Twinmotion 2019, we'll come to the More over here, and in the lighting we have the GI option. If I turn this option off, this is basically what we had in Twinmotion 2019. And with the new Screen Space Global Illumination, this is the kind of effect that we have. You can see the red color that is bleeding on the wall, same as over here. And for example, if I pick this material over here and if I apply it to my floor, you can really see the color bouncing all over the place. And now I can even change the color and you can see how it affects the lighting of all my scene. After the SSGI, we've done some work on the project review. So let me come over here and let me actually come under my project. Here we have some pipes and vents and electric wire. So in Twinmotion 2020 we added a new option on the material. So if I use my material picker and click on this geometry over here, I will come to the settings. Here we have a new option called X-ray. If I turn this option on, now I can visualize this object on top of everything. Same thing for the other one. I will just use my material picker, click on this geometry, I will enable X-ray, and by clicking on a more, I can also customize my color. So for example, this one, I want it green. And it's a way that you can visualize the pipes, the vents around your project, where they are going in your ceiling, under your roof, for example. And now those objects have this X-ray material. If I want to remove that, I can enter my scene organizer. Let me just close this folder over here. And here I have my folder MEP, and I can turn this folder on and off if I want. Next thing is the node tool. So let me come, for example, over here. One of the new features of Twinmotion for making project review is the new node tool. You can find that in the library in the tools folder, node. The node tool, it's just a basic drag and drop from the library to the viewport. Once my node is here, I have a few options to customize my node, like changing the size, the alignment of the text. You can change the color if the note is facing always the camera. You can add the title and a description. So for example, when you are making a project review with your client, you can just, if you see some problem with the project, you can just add a few notes like change the material over here, fix the geometry here, or the ceiling, have a hole over here, fix that. And once you have all your notes placed inside your project, if you click on the burger menu over here, we added a new option, which is the export BCF file. That means that you can export those notes back to Revit or back to ArchiCAD, and in your CAD software you will retrieve the title, the description, and you will also retrieve the thumbnail of the note, so you can visualize quickly where was the problem in your model and fix them while in your CAD software. Next thing, we've done some work on the material. So I've already shown you the video material, which is something new. If I just come back really quickly here, this video material you can find inside the library at the bottom inside the video folder. Once you added this video to a material, you can also customize the texture, so you can load your own video by clicking on the open tab over here. Next thing, we added some frosted glass material. So just jumping to this point of view, I will enter the glass folder, and here we have a new frosted glass material option. And on here we have a few options in the dock, as always, just to customize the look of the materials. But this is the new frosted glass material. Next thing, we added an option to stretch a texture. So let me come, for example, to this point of view here. Right now I have this texture, but if I want, for example, my scale to be like square, for example, in the scale, so first I selected my material as always using my material picker. Under my scale option, I will click on the mirror, I will enter the axis option, and here we added two new options, stretch on X and stretch on Y. And now I can use this option to stretch the material on one specific axis. So for example, here I've made my scale, my plate almost square, but I can also scale it in any direction, of course. Finally, one of the last options we added on the materials is the grunge option. So for example, here if I pick my material on my ground, if I enter the more of the color option, we have this new grunge option. It just adds a bit of noise to the texture to break up the repetition a bit. So for example, here you can see that this green is repeating a bit. So if I start to raise the grunge option, it will break down a bit this repetition. So it's just to add more variation. So for example, same here on my parking lot, I can click over here and just raise the grunge to add more variation to the material itself. Next thing is the character. So same thing here, I will come back to my list of media, and here basically what I did is just create different point of view around my project just to switch from the different features I wanted to present. So here I'm just going to switch to my characters image over here. And actually I will remove my note, don't need that anymore. So with this new version of Twinmotion, we have completely reworked all the characters that we have inside Twinmotion. So first off, it starts with the animated characters. So all our characters has been replaced by photoscan data. So if I drag and drop a couple of them here, and if I come a bit closer, you can see that now the characters is much more believable. The quality has been enhanced. Same thing for the animation. We now are using motion capture for all of our animation, so it's much more believable. It's not animation created by hand by our own animator. So we wanted to raise the quality over here. We added also new types of animation, and among those new type of animation we added at the bottom here the walking animation. So of course it's not meant to be used as static like that. It's because in Twinmotion 2020 one of the new options that we have added is the ability to add characters on the custom path. So for example over here, if I enter my path, custom path, here I will just really quickly create let's create a path that is going through my project. Just going to remove this guy out of the way. So I created this custom path. By default, this custom path have a box inside it. Also, by the way, a new way to select your custom path, instead of selecting it by the send graph or by clicking on the orange dot, you can directly click on the shape and it will select the path. So here we have a few options. What I will do is just switch the speed to 3 kilometers, remove the delay, and I will just drag and drop one of our characters from the library into this Dropbox. And if I click on this character, I'm entering the selection dock of this character. And here I will just switch from the idle state to the walking animation. And now I have my character that is animated, that is walking along my path. I can even select it back and change the type of animation. So maybe it's walking this way, maybe it's walking while falling. So it's a way, be careful about that, just moving my point so it doesn't enter the building itself. So yeah, with these changes you can a bit more set up the path the way you want, so it's not randomized, so you can just create one character and have this specific character walking in the way you want, at the place you want inside your project. So next thing, after those characters that are animated, we have added some ready posed characters, which is the one that is over here right now. We added more than 80 of them, so it's just really highly detailed 3D model, which are just in pose, but which definitely enhance the quality. So for example here, if I have a closer look, You can see the details of the texture, which really improve the quality of any renderings that you will be creating, especially images. Finally, we have done some work on the media. So let me come to the media section, video. We have simplified the way you create an animation inside Twinmotion. So I will first click on the create video. This creates a first keyframe. If I want to create a second keyframe, if I want this video to be animated, I will just follow the text over here. I just move my camera and click on this small plus to create a second keyframe. Pretty simple. Now if I want to create a second part, a second clip, I will click on this plus over here. So let me just move my camera a bit, something like that, to have a wider shot. I will click on this new plus button. Same thing here, just clicking, creating two keyframes. And now I have two different parts, two different clips, and they are all together inside the same video. So we just wanted to simplify the way you create a video inside Twinmotion. You don't need to go anymore in two different docs and create in one place and edit in a second place. Here you are creating your shot in the same place, you are putting them together. You can collapse that, you can change the time, you can change the transition. Actually, for every block of new features inside Twinmotion 2020, we have created tutorials dedicated. So we have one for the media, one for the vegetation, we have one for the project review, and we have two more that will come around the presenter and the lighting. So if you want to learn more about those specific new features, don't hesitate to check that on our YouTube channel. So after this improved video creation doc, we have a bit reorganized all the options that you have inside Twinmotion. So basically now what we have is that we have a context doc. Here is all the tools that allow you to edit your project, like adding people, adding vegetation, adding some context around your project. And then we have the settings, which is specific to your camera. So for example, here, this is locked because I am in an image. If I want to change the settings, here of this specific part, I need to go over here in the settings over here. And here is the settings of this specific media. So I just wanted So we just wanted to put together the option that is locked inside the media compared to the option that is general to the overall project. Then we have made some changes on the depth of field. So if I come over here, let's just put those two guys in front of each other, for example, something like that. Here I will click on the plus to create a new part. In this part I will come to the more, camera, just going to change the focal, and here I wanted to show you the new depth of field. When you turn that on, first the most important thing of this new tool is this autofocus tool here. So basically you click on that and you just click on the image on the point you want your image to be in focus. Like here I'm clicking on this guy, so in focus. I can focus on the ear of this guy over here or on my project on the background. So it's just an easier way to set the point of your image which is in focus. We'll have a tutorial regarding all of that as well, but just wanted to quickly introduce to the new depth of field tool, which definitely raised the quality of any images. The old depth that we had was a bit blurry. Now we use real camera settings for all the depth of field effect that we have here. Also on this new camera we reworked, we added a new option to customize the lens flare. So let's create a new shot over here. I will actually remove the depth of field from this view, and here we added a new option, which is the lens flare option. So if I raise this, you can see this flare effect that is present inside the camera. So it's also something new. Also, by the way, you are looking at the sunset over here. It's also something new with this new version of Twinmotion. We completely reworked the sky. So now we are using a physical sky which have a real value. So let me first have a camera which is a bit of a larger focal. And here we'll come to the lighting, not the lighting, the location dock. So now our sky model is much more accurate compared to what we had in the past. The position is still the same. That means that you can really make some sun study with Twinmotion. It's just the color that you have, especially at sunset, will be much more close to what we can expect in the reality. Same as the color of the sky and the color the sun produces inside the project. Next thing regarding the media is, if I come over here back to the media, we have a new option which is the presenter. We'll have tutorials dedicated to that, but a quick presentation will be, we'll remove the old BeamMotion file to replace it by the new presenter. The presenter is a standalone .exe file on PC. It's I think a .app on Mac. So it's a standalone viewer of your project that doesn't require Twinmotion to run. It's an application that you can send to your client so you can visualize this project. You can basically define a story inside Twinmotion when you create your presenter. So here, for example, you can add some slide. You can see that a bit like a PowerPoint on steroids. So you can add your slide in the order you want, and then your viewer, your client will be able to follow the presentation you have set up just by clicking on the slide while in full screen mode without all the editing tools that you have inside Twinmotion. So as I said, we'll have a tutorial dedicated to that, so if you want to learn more, check out our YouTube channel. Finally, a few new stuff. First off, we have a new direct link with Rhino, so I can't show you that in this project, which was created in Revit and 3ds Max, but yes, if you are using Rhino, we now have a direct link with Rhino. We added a new option to customize decals, so let me maybe come in, maybe in this sort over here. If I come to my object folder, decals, if I drag and drop this decal on my, let's drag in on my wall here, now we added a new option here, which is the first option over here. If I come over here and come to my desktop webinar, you can customize the texture that is called inside your decal. So here I just changed the texture to the new Twinmotion logo. So you can just, you can add your own logo, you can add your own texture. Best format for that is PNG without background. So it will automatically retrieve the alpha channel like I did here. Same thing for the cutout that we have in the character library cutout. The cutout is just a plane with the texture of here to girl that is following the position of the camera. And you can now customize the texture that is called over here. So I can click on the more texture. Same process here, I just select the texture over here, and right now it's a bit stretched, so I can just here by clicking and holding the mouse I can switch to the scale tool and just rescale my billboard, my cutout. So yeah, new option, you can also customize the billboard, the characters billboard that we have inside Twinmotion. And I think that's almost it. Just one tiny option that we added in the preference dock here is the VSync option. So it's an option to synchronize the internal frame rate of Twinmotion with the screen refresh rate. So it's a new option, a bit technical, but it's there. And we also added a new dynamic resolution option. How can I explain that? It's an option to dynamically adapt the viewport resolution to always have a good frame rate. So, sorry, if you don't have a really good machine, you can turn this option on, and if you start to go below 25 frames per second while navigating inside the viewport, the resolution of the viewport will dynamically adapt to always stay at 25 frame per second. So yeah, it's just an optimization option to to navigate easily and comfortably inside your scene. And finally, the last changes that we did is in the export doc. It's really a tiny thing, but now we added this window that allows you to visualize the image you are going to export. So previously it was just a text list. Now it's a list with the thumbnail, so it's easier to know what you are exporting. And I think that's it for this quick presentation of Twinmotion 2020. I think we are going to switch to the Q&A. I see that there is plenty of questions, and yeah, now if you have some questions, feel free to ask them. And yeah, thanks for those who don't have questions that will leave now. Thanks everyone.